Now, oil. Oil is the planet's most sought after commodity. Everything runs with it. Anybody that comes up with stuff that's not oil, like Stirling motors or the Stirling engine, has been going for since the 19th century and a pretty efficient, uh, economical engines. It's almost free energy we're looking at. Free energy motors, hydrocell production, anything that's got to do with not using oil can attract some very fatal interest. So oil is the whole petrodollar, the oil economy, the kind of wars that have allegedly been fought over oil on this planet. There's all sorts of oil related issues on planet Earth. And it's all got to do with, plastics and pharmaceuticals. It's everything that we've got in modern society, internal combustion, the burning of things. Everything oxidizes. You burn oil, petrol in your engines, and it produces heat, compression, and carbon dioxide. Everything's burning on this planet. It's fissionable materials. You can even burning isotopes to get radioactive processes as well. Everything's burning on this planet, and oil is the central theme of planet Earth is oil, and just has been since the very start of the technological era in the very early 20th century. Now the thing about oil though is that we all know it comes from big vast reservoirs under places like Saudi Arabia. Apparently there's enormous oil reserves under America, but nobody bothers to. America's a very, very enormous oil. Could be an enormous oil producer, America. Apparently it's got massive reserves, but for some reason prefers to go looking for oil in war zones somewhere. It'll go to Far East, Middle East war zone and compete for oil, and there's no need when it's apparently got oceans of oil under its own continent. So the thing is that the oil is contentious, isn't it? It's the big deal on planet Earth. And what would we do without oil? Now, there we take a quick pause and we look at, well, what else is there that we can't do without on planet Earth, apart from oxygen, of course. Things that happen on planet Earth are things like chaos theory. Chaos happens everywhere. Well, we know from the chaos in the stock markets and chaos in the natural world. Look at chaos in the natural world. Please look at chaos in that. Somebody somewhere look at chaos in the natural world. It was a paradigm explored on supercomputing at the Santa Fe Institute in the early 1990s. You could show that Darwin had been superseded because eyes didn't take millions of years to evolve. They spontaneously happened, spontaneously emerged. There was a guy called Dr. Brian Goodwin that pointed that out to us. The other thing is that chaos, if you look at chaos, there's chaos in the clouds, the water forms, trees, the vascularization of the human body, the way that the human embryo develops. It's all chaos theory. It's, fractals and everything we can think of, every physical object we can look at and see, everything is down to chaos theory. So chaos theory is pretty fundamental, basic, constant at the heart of everything. Now, this sudden nature of chaos, to be suddenly emerging or suddenly demerging, the suddenness of it all, the catastrophism of it all, was investigated on a big scale by a man called Immanuel Velikovsky, who allegedly borrowed some of that material from another gentleman called William Thomas Beaumont, a British researcher called William Thomas Beaumont. But Immanuel Velikovsky is known for his famous work, Worlds in Collision, which might have been loosely based on Thomas Beaumont's The Comet. Same thing though, big comet comes down, blows everything up, pole shift, and everything moves about, and it all happens suddenly. Dinosaurs gone suddenly, just like that, blam. So chaos theory is possibly responsible for sudden evolutionary leaps, something that's not taking the slow, ponderous climb up Mount Improbable that maybe Richard Dawkins and other Darwinists think that it does. It just happens suddenly, spontaneously, right? So we've got the idea that chaos can produce spontaneous things, highly complex spontaneous things. Now, I just want you to just pause that. Now, you know what chaos theory is all about, and we know what oil is all about, because we just discussed oil and how essential it is to absolutely everything on planet Earth, and how essential chaos theory is to everything on planet Earth. Supposing that the geology, that's the Earth, the rocks in which oil reservoirs are stored, just suddenly disappear. Supposing a major oil reserve like Saudi Arabia just disappears suddenly because basically it goes in a sudden plug hole. Supposing in the geology, suddenly in the geology, because of all the other motions going on. Because we sometimes think planet Earth is a static thing, but maybe in fact this chaos process is happening all the time. Now, how can this be? You say to yourself, what's he talking about? Well, look at the sinkholes. There are sinkholes opening up all over this planet. Some might say, well, that's a weaponized satellite, maybe blasting a hole in something just to let people know that they can do that. Maybe, but if you look at the nature of geology, in the couple hundred years that we've been exploring for oil, and have you ever heard of a vast oil reserve just suddenly disappearing overnight? An oil reserve that maybe, you know, it had been predicted that it could go, and there was so much oil that you could have 10 years out of it. As 10 or 100 years of oil suddenly vanished overnight. Have you ever heard of that? And if not, why not? Why not? Why has oil like that not just suddenly? Because the Earth's plates, the rocks, they shift about. There's volcanism, volcanic, there's plate tectonics, there's earthquakes, there's all sorts of things. I mean, if you look at the Far East, it's not. I mean, the Saudi Arabia oil reserve is not that far from the African Rift Valley. It's not that far from the Turkey earthquake zone. It's not that far from anything. These places, why do they not just, if the oil just couldn't suddenly disappear overnight, why not? It's very possible, is what I'm saying. It's very possible because we're living in a world of chaos. Chaos theory rules the material and the fabric in which we live. But the oil on which we depend is subject to chaos theory as well. And the rocks and the geology that produce the oil, that store the oil, that hold the oil, could easily develop a plug hole overnight, and all the oil maybe disappears down another 1,000 miles into the Earth's core. It could easily happen. Easily happen. And the thing is, why has it not yet happened? I mean, it has to have happened somewhere. If you think about it, if you think about the sudden nature of things like sinkholes, the sudden nature of Earth changes, Earth movement, plate movements, earthquakes, the sudden nature of volcanism, why has no oil reserve suddenly disappeared? Now the next question, which you could say, well, it's a pure flight of fancy, but let's just go there anyway. I've been saying that the aliens that we know and love, or the jinn, or the greys, or the archons, or whatever you want to call them, these beings are capable of manufacturing anything on the spur of the moment. Anything. They can do anything. They can produce look-alike people, look-alike objects, look-alike cars, look-alike anything. They can manufacture spontaneously energy to matter in the most spontaneous way. And they can do that. Supposing they could do it on a huge scale. Now, might see where I'm going with this. Perhaps this oil reserve thing has already happened. Maybe somebody somewhere knows that the oil reserve in some major oil place has actually stopped flowing. But that, so I'm betting, say, it's a weird thing for me to say, but it's highly likely that these beings that are been farming us for thousands of years, that these beings would produce the oil for us to use, to burn, because they're into burning and dust and ashes and things. They're into oxidation, breaking down, disintegration. So they're into us burning. They're into us living in a restricted, dark ages mud hut. That's what they want us. So that they'd be very happy to produce oil. I'm very sure they could, by paranormal means, supply oil if there was no oil supply. Yeah, in a place, they might suddenly, you may have, as an example, supposing after some major Turkey earthquake in, say, Mesopotamia or something like that. So supposing some major earthquake happens in the Middle East, and the oil reserve that everybody is being dependent on, the whole world depends on certain balance of structure, and supposing that just disappears in a plug hole somewhere. Could be another 1,000 miles down towards the Earth's core. Suddenly, it's like, you pull the plug out of your bath, wham, down it goes. Now, if that were to happen, I'm saying that the jinn or the greys or whatever, they would, at point of they would produce the oil for us to use. That's what I'm saying. Seems weird, but it might be possible that at some place on this planet, an oil reserve that we are already been counting on has already disappeared, and that's the oil, instead of the oil being mined naturally or geologically, that some big box is there pumping out oil, energy to matter, producing crude oil for us to use. But why would they do that? Why would they not just give us free energy motors? They don't want us to have this stuff. There have been centuries and centuries of people being iced when they come up with the idea of interfering with the balance of power. They don't want us more advanced. They don't want us to advance. They're happy to cull us as we are. So they would produce the oil for us. They wouldn't want us to give us science. They don't want us to get away. They don't want us to escape, for goodness sake. They don't want us to jump in a Starship Enterprise and get lost somewhere. They don't want us to escape. So they'd be happy to maintain the status quo, the oil producing status quo. And if the oil disappears, they'd want us to have it. They'd want us to have it so that the status quo that they're currently milking would proceed as usual. That's it. That's an idea. I'm not saying it's quite a flight of fancy, it seems like, but it's not impossible.